بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا، وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. أسأل الله تبارك وتعالى أن يجعل نياتنا خالصة لوجه الكريم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. I praise Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to raise the status of Sayyiduna Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, his family, his companions, and all those who follow them in excellence until the day of judgment. And I remind myself and I remind all of you of correcting our intentions, that we intend by all of these gatherings and sessions that we have التقرب إلى الله تبارك وتعالى, to have a higher status with Allah by drawing close to Him through our acts of obedience. It is important, if we're going to be successful in this world, in the intermediate world, and in the hereafter, that we make it a habit to formulate noble intentions in everything we do. And so when we interact with one another, whether online or in person, we should make all of our interactions beneficial. And we should have that intention. Every time I engage with my brothers and sisters, there's going to be an exchange of benefit. There's going to be an exchange of mutual benefit. I wanted to take a moment to talk about the importance of knowledge and learning. Because we have these sessions regularly, and we're hearing and we're listening and we're engaging. But we also want to ensure that we're actually increasing in knowledge and learning the matters of our religion. and that the issues that we learn them in a clear manner, in a way that facilitates understanding and implementation. I was having a conversation, and a lot of these scattered thoughts, they come from conversations I have. Through my conversations, I get things that come to my mind that I think are important to talk about. One of those conversations was related to understanding and truly knowing our religion. And I want to start with a question. No, let me start with a hadith before I start with a question. Imam al-Bukhari related in his Sahih, in the book of knowledge, the section, knowledge must precede every statement and action. So, bab al-ilmu qabla al-qawli wal-amal. In that section, he related the hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever Allah willed for that person goodness, he would give them the understanding of the religion. And verily, knowledge is through learning. And understanding is through being given that understanding. This hadith, may yuridillahu bihi khayra yufaqihu fi din, wa innama al-ilmu bit-ta'allum wal-fiqhu bit-tafaqquh. This hadith, in most books of fiqh, especially short books, you may find this hadith as an opening hadith. And what is understood from it, that understanding the religion is an indication from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah wants good for you. And then it explains the methodology by which you should learn this religion. And it is that knowledge is acquired by learning through teachers who explain to you that knowledge. And understanding is given in the same process by someone teaching you and helping you to understand. So it's an active process. But what I wanted to concentrate on is actually understanding what we're learning. You would hear that a lot of times when we're talking, we would say, is it clear? Is it clear? Is it clear? The reason for that is that our intention in that questioning is to make sure we're understanding. It's obvious that we're hearing. How much of it do we understand? Do we really understand what we are doing on this platform, what we are covering? Is it something that is established in the heart? So when we think about the conference, the Islamic Unity Conference, what did we want out of that? Many things. But the most important thing, and we mentioned it on the last day of the conference in the closing, that we want us to understand our religion. If we understand our religion well, Deen al-Islam, this way of life, the Deen of Islam, if we understand it well, that will be the energy we need to actually implement it in our lives and convey it to others. Understanding. It is almost impossible to implement and convey something you don't understand. Even if you implement it, you will implement it in an invalid way. And likewise, you will convey it with mistakes. So it's very important, as this hadith mentions, for us to seek to understand the religion. And in understanding the religion, there is a sequence of issues, rulings that we need to learn and understand. Among those are some that are obligatory and some that are recommended. The priority is the obligation. That's the priority. The priority is for us to learn what Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and His Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made obligatory upon us. And that knowledge, which is an obligation on everyone who is mukallaf, who is morally responsible, is the person's knowledge and belief and conviction in the matters of al-aqidah as a priority. Umur al-aqidah, the matters relating to tenets of faith, to the creed, is the most important part of Islam. Nothing in Islam is more important than having the correct belief in Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and His Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I remember Sayyidi Sheikh Samir was explaining to us one time about the religious knowledge. And he was talking about the issue of the creed. He said, in the issue of the creed, al-aqidah, there are non-negotiable items. That's how he explained it. And then there are negotiable items. What did he intend by that? There are some issues related to the creed that are definitive, that do not accept alternative interpretations. So these issues related to the creed, you must believe them in this way, and there is no excuse for any diversions from that way. These are the non-negotiable items in the creed. And then you have other issues that are negotiable, meaning that they can bear more than one interpretation. So they can have alternative interpretations, and that does not reflect any divergence in the core of one's belief. Those issues that are non-negotiable, at another level, more explanation, there are those issues that reach us by a definitive text from the Quran and the Sunnah that does not bear more than one possible meaning that can be derived from the text. So anytime that knowledge reaches us through a verse of the Quran or a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that is definitive and cannot bear another meaning, then this is a belief that is among the non-negotiable items of the creed. Also, that issue is something that is necessarily known to be of the religion, meaning that any scholar or layman would know that this is a part of the religion. And lastly, that it is conveyed by scholarly consensus, al-ijma'. He said, whenever the issue has all of those aspects to it, then such an issue is a non-negotiable issue of the creed. Other than that is a negotiable issue, meaning it could bear other interpretations, and one may not definitively say which one of those interpretations is actually correct, because both of them are probable. They both could bear truth and could be incorrect. So in the issue of the creed, these are issues that we need to learn well and to distinguish which of those are definitive and which of those are not definitive. Which of those must have complete agreement and which of those issues allow for a valid disagreement. For us, most of us, the scale of that are the well-known scholars whose works have been accepted in general by the Muslim nation. This is important. the scale for most of us are the well-known scholars of Islam through their writings, which have been accepted in general by the Muslim nation. Mm. So that's your scale. Which would entail from our side to identify those well-known scholars and their book and their books. That's important. Because through those well-known scholars and their books that have been accepted by the majority of the Muslim nation for hundreds of years, you will have an idea of these issues. And from their practice in navigating those issues, you will learn how to navigate the issues. So one of the ways for us to get understanding of the religion in general, the issues that are personal obligations in specific, whether it is from the creed or the rules, is by having reference to those well-known scholars and books that have been accepted by this nation. Hence, that is why the majority of our scholars from the time of the Salaf and the development of al-madhahib, Islamic schools of thought, whether they were madhahib in al-aqaid or in ilm al-aqidah, ilm al-usul al-din, whether they were schools in the science of belief or the foundations of the religion, or madhahib fil ahkam al-fiqhiyah, in the practical rules of the religion, scholars have followed that. And so have laymen, for the purpose of ensuring that the knowledge reached us, number one, in a trustworthy manner, and also from sources that we could have confidence in. This is very important, extremely important. And if I could think of the most important work that we could be doing in our time, it is ensuring that this knowledge and methodology becomes well known among us. And that's a function. You know, everyone doesn't have the same job. Some people have to specialize in some areas and others in other areas. And with that in mind, I think one of the areas we need to specialize in is laying out the map so that we can learn properly. Here's the roadmap to acquire knowledge. Here's the roadmap to learn. This is what you need to know. This is how you go about obtaining what you need to know. And this should be the end result after you obtain it. It is very important. Islam, Deenul Islam, is not a do-it-yourself way of life. Even if the do-it-yourself approach has become popular, it's not the proper approach. If we continue down the road of not having recourse to our well-known scholars and their books, we will go further and further and further away from the straight path. And we won't be recipients of the meaning that is contained in that hadith, مَن يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. We won't be of those who actually have an understanding of the religion. Mm. And at minimum, in terms of that understanding, is at least to know what you're looking for. Look at it from this way, another way. Our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to us with revelation over 1400 years ago. And Islam, under the sacred law of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, has been conveyed from generation to generation to generation to generation to generation till it reached us. Can you imagine how many scholars and books have been authored? How many scholars came and how many books they authored in those 1400 years? Just take a minute. Think of Islam all around the world, in every place, from east, west, north, and south, in the whole country, in the whole world, and then think how much information has been authored about the various aspects of this deen. Think about that. And when you think about that, you would understand that the foundational methodology for learning about Islam and ultimately gaining an understanding of Islam is well established. It's well established. Well established. And for us, we need to connect to that well established methodology. And the reason that's important is so that ultimately we would follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which the Quran and the Sunnah has obliged us to do in the proper manner. And ultimately, from that, we'll get an understanding of the religion that we can implement. And it also will be a means by which we could weigh the various groups and movements in our time, which we're confronted with. I don't think, especially in North America, especially in our communities, that this has been well thought out and conveyed to most of us. We have been given slogan Islam, made so simplistic that it's become a hindrance from us actually learning the religion properly. So the slogan is, I follow Al-Quran and As-Sunnah. And the delusion that follows that slogan is, I actually do that. And I actually have the ability to independently do that as if I were a top-ranking scholar. Which is a huge departure from reality. That whole process of thinking is a huge departure from reality. But it's become a norm. It's become so normal and then gained so much prominence that even the one who knows better sometimes feels forced to engage in such foolishness and delusion. That's something to think about. The person actually knows, and despite that knowledge, would still engage in such falsehood. So there is a need to spend a lot of time teaching us what and how to actually learn and understand. And that becomes just as important as the actual learning and understanding process. Because without the how, you're never going to do the actual process. So what we've been doing on the Black Imams Roundtable for the last few weeks is actually trying to lay out this map. In other words, how is this practical? But there's some severe challenges that I think we need to look at. We have to increase the access of the common people to our tradition, to the methodology of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. We have to get that out stage by stage. Like that has to be a concentrated effort. And I want to start actually doing that in live gatherings. Maybe even bi-monthly, live, face to face, mapping that out and ensuring that we understand it well. That itself is such an important work for us now, and definitely for those who are going to come after us, so they don't make the same mistakes that we are making and those who preceded us made in this regard. It's something I've been thinking about a lot. And to assemble those of our communities who actually understand to help in that process. That's a service in and of itself. It's something that we've really been thinking about. So I want us to start paying close attention to the methodology of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Not just making a claim, not just saying something, actually paying attention to what's really happening. What are we really learning? You shouldn't have question marks about these core issues. They should be very clear, and we should be able to articulate them just as we drink water. That easy. It should just flow. And we need to review and repeat until it becomes like that. So this is just an important thing that I was thinking about yesterday and today. I was having a conversation about that. And I was talking to a leader, and we was talking about Islam and the Muslim community, and the whole conversation, not once did the person mention about learning. In fact, they wanted to do everything other than learn. And in their mind, that would bring the Muslim community together. Let's not talk about religion, but we're going to come together in the name of religion. And it was normal. It was not even a thought. Normal. And I was thinking to myself, subhanallah, this is dangerous. No wonder we're not reaching where we want to reach collectively. Don't care about religion. Our religious institutions are ran by politicians and business people. Listen to that. Our religious institutions are ran by politicians and business people. And we accept that stuff. It's normal. think about it, it's the height of insanity. And we set up the religious institutions so that they are like that. So we have to have a revival. And we have to have a revival in our religious spaces that is driven by religious knowledge and practice. In reality, not just in form. One of the biggest signs, and we shouldn't be causes of it, that our communities are not being religious is the lack of Islamic sciences and books being taught in our religious spaces. One of the signs of that is the lack of various religious sciences and relied upon books being taught in our religious spaces. When that's taken out, that's a sign for you. What books are we learning? What sciences are we learning? When the overwhelming majority answer is nothing or very little, that's a sign that we need reform. Where are the circles of knowledge? What is being taught? What are the books? Where are our reference? What are our chains of narration? Where is all of this? Because this is the tradition of Islam. If it's missing, that lets you know something is missing in our religion and the way we're approaching it. Which is another sign that good is not really looking for us. I mean, that it's a sign that we're heading down the wrong road. And learning the religion does not mean that we don't do other things, because it's a part of learning the religion to do other things. In the religious rules, there is business. There is rules in the religion, judgments for business. So obvious, that doesn't mean we don't do other things, because when we learn, we're going to be learning the rulings and judgments for things other than acts of worship. Ibadat. We have mu'amalat, right? We have dealings and transactions. We have marriage and divorce, and we have uh, legal rulings in relation to crimes and punishments. All of those things exist in the sacred law. So, inshallah, we'll continue this conversation. I just wanted to put the thoughts in your mind. Uh, and to renew our covenant, to keep this process going of learning. Inshallah, this is serve as a reminder to just nudge us towards what is beneficial for us in this world and in the hereafter. Let me, inshallah, take the question that I had. And if there are other questions, please feel free. I saw some of them, but I missed some. Are you proposing a curriculum? We have a curriculum. We've been doing a curriculum for almost 5 years. But what I don't think we need a curriculum in so much that I think we need to learn the basics. I don't think we need a curriculum yet. I think we need to learn the basics. And when I mean curriculum, you mean in various sciences and different books. I don't think most of us are ready for that yet. Our desires may be ready for that, but we didn't learn how to do addition and subtraction yet. And that's our ertaaining. I think we need to learn. I don't think, I'm 100% sure. We need to learn what we have to learn before we even begin learning it. Did you hear what I said? We have to learn what we need to learn before we actually go learning what we need to learn. Because the do-it-yourself thing will have us learning things we don't need to learn and neglecting things we must learn. So we need to learn first what we need to learn. And then once we learn what we need to learn, actually go learn it in the proper way. So no, I don't suggest go buy a bunch of books. That's the opposite effect. Let's just go buy books and we're going to have all these books. And yeah, all right, now what you going to do with all those books? Do you have a teacher? Is someone sitting with you going over those books? Did you cover any books? This is important, right? So really you only need to learn one book first, well, and that's a book in ertaaining. I'll give you example, and I'm thinking about this well. There are two books that I would suggest that we get these books and we start there until we master. The first book is this book, Al-Maqasid. Why do I say this book? Because it is a book that is concentrating on what I'm talking about. But you actually need to do that with a teacher. which means we should have this book, and it's like in other madhahib, in other schools, and every one of us understands this book well as a foundational start, right? Preferably that most of us have it memorized. And if we don't have it memorized, we have it read so much that the rulings in it were as if we memorized it. And you're not satisfied till you went over that whole book with a teacher, not you by yourself. You read by yourself, but actually someone went over with this book with you. It's different. It's totally different from you reading it on your own. Now, someone's sitting down and going over it with you. So that's going to take a little bit of humbleness to the ones think they know everything. It takes a little humbleness to sit down and learn. And a lot of us struggle with that. I don't want to sit down and learn. You should. And even if you think you know, sit down and learn. Even if you think you know, sit down and learn. Give me 1 second. If you finish this book, and this needs to be just like our core meal. That's not meaning we're not going to do other stuff. That doesn't mean we won't read any things. But any other things. But if we want to change this problem we have, we need to start somewhere. A base mastery and complete comprehension of foundational matters. So if we finish that book and we did that well, and we continue to do that, there is another book that I would suggest. And this is for our overall personal obligatory knowledge. The second book, and these are well-known books, and I say in them for a reason. The second book is this book. I know many of us say, I have the book. Some may not. Those who don't, is a must-have in your library. But not only you have the book, but you actually studying it with someone. That's a difference. I know you have the book and you read it. Did you sit down and study that? Are you going over it, making sure you understand these cases? Are you being checked? Are you being evaluated to make sure you really understand? If all of us understood these two books well, and then simultaneously we branched out to learn other books in various Islamic sciences and disciplines, we would change the whole nature or environment in our religious spaces. So if we want a base, because we always look at that's a base I suggest. And we're going to actively do it, inshallah ta'ala. Because it cannot be something that we just say and we don't do. So we're going to make it where these are just regular classes that we go over and over and over and over till it becomes second nature for us. I think this would be a great service to our community. Right? And there is other books. And I'm going, inshallah, back to the study of books. Because one thing with the books, number one, they have the support of their original authors. And those books, the original authors were authors who their scholarship was agreed upon by generations of scholars after them and during their time. It's not like you're reading books by someone who their scholarship has not been well documented and agreed upon. These type of books you're talking about, they've been that way um, um, for hundreds of years and studied all around the world. Sometimes we don't know that. That's why you need those living teachers to bring these books alive. But we'll mention other books as well. And then throughout different madhahib and start to have that process in other madhabs. Of course, as I follow the Shafi'i school, I am much more familiar in detail with the Shafi'i school than other schools. But because of what I'm talking to us about, I made it my business to actually learn the same thing in other schools as far as what do we need to know and then how do we go about learning it. I think it's so important that we begin this process. So inshallah, I look forward to us working together and doing that. May Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala facilitate our noble intentions and make it possible. Ameen. So I remind you tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, we'll continue in our discussion of the rubber meeting the road or hitting the road. We talked about the issue of Aqidah. We mentioned books, and if you follow them, we mentioned books, we mentioned those things. And now we're going to go to Al-Fiqh because that's a lifetime journey. Al-Aqidah, you learn it, you study it well, then it's something you hold in your heart and you convey. Al-Fiqh is your everyday life because your whole life is a walking fiqh ruling. Subhanallah. Your whole life is a walking fiqh ruling. So the rules of al-fiqh, those practical rules of the religion, they need to be constantly studied because your life is constantly moving and you're confronted with different things that require legal rulings and judgments that you have to deal with. So inshallah, may Allah make it easy for us. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. بارك الله فيكم وجزاكم الله خيرا. May Allah make this session of some benefit, a reminder for us, a wake-up call for us, and may we have high aspirations to actually do the work. Insha'Allah ta'ala. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.